Esteban Ocon has won a Grand Prix. He's led a team's midfield charge, outscored famous teammates, banked a decade of Formula One experience. And right now, none of it is protecting him. Because the thing that decides his future isn't on the timing screens. It's in a boardroom he doesn't sit in. Look at the TGR Haas driver lineup and it reads as settled. A rising British rookie in one seat, a proven French veteran in the other. The obvious blend of youth and experience every team says it wants. The story sells itself. Ocon is the steady hand brought in to guide an American team through the most turbulent rule change in a generation. That's the version in the previews. It's also, quietly, the wrong one. Because Ocon's seat may be the single most contested piece of real estate in the 2027 driver market. And the reasons have almost nothing to do with how fast he can drive. If you want to understand how a race winner ended up as the most exposed man on the grid, and why two of the biggest names in motorsport are quietly circling the same cockpit, stay with this and get subscribed, because this isn't a story about a driver losing his form. It's about a driver losing a game that's being played above his head. Start with the one fact that reframes everything else. Ocon's contract with Haas runs out at the end of this season. There's an option for 2027, but it belongs to the team, not to him. That single detail is the hinge the whole story turns on. He isn't locked in. He's auditioning, every weekend, for a seat that a growing line of people would very much like to take from him. And in modern Formula One, when you're auditioning without a manufacturer standing behind you, the audition is brutal. To see why he's so exposed, you have to look at the two forces that now sit inside the Haas garage, because this team no longer answers to one master, it answers to two. On one side, Ferrari, the engine supplier of a decade, whose power unit still sits in the back of the car, whose wind tunnel still shapes it, and whose academy produced Oliver Bearman, the rookie in the other seat. Bearman isn't just quick, he's a Ferrari investment, placed at Haas to develop, which means one of the two cockpits already effectively answers to Maranello. On the other side stands Toyota, the new title partner pouring money into the team's simulator, its people, its manufacturing future, and running its own driver development program in the background, with its own endurance and junior talent logging miles in older Haas machinery. Two giant manufacturers, each with its own drivers to promote, each with its own reasons to care who fills the one seat that isn't already spoken for. And Ocon belongs to neither of them. That's the real vulnerability, not his pace, but his independence. And it represents a genuine shift in how the sport works. There was a time when a driver's results were his passport. Win races, score points, and seats opened for you on merit alone. That era hasn't vanished, but it's been steadily overgrown by another logic, the logic of the manufacturer pipeline, where car companies fund academies, place their graduates, and increasingly treat customer and partner teams as finishing schools for their own talent. In that world, being nobody's driver used to be a mark of freedom. Now it's a mark of exposure. When the two most powerful entities at your team are both looking at your seat as a prize to hand to one of their own, having no patron isn't neutrality, it's isolation. Ocon is the only principal driver in that garage without a corporate flag planted behind him, and that makes him the path of least resistance for everyone else's ambitions. Now, here's where the honest version has to correct the dramatic one, because it would be easy to spin this into a conspiracy. Ocon isn't being sabotaged. Nobody is feeding him a broken car or engineering him out with hidden software. The reason he's under pressure is far simpler, and it's written plainly on the results sheet. His rookie teammate has been beating him. Through the opening stretch of the season, Oliver Bearman led their qualifying head-to-head comfortably, and the championship points weren't close. Bearman well into double figures while Ocon scraped a handful. Komatsu, the team principal, hasn't hidden his disappointment. He said openly that Ocon's performances have fallen short of what the team hoped for. That's the uncomfortable foundation under all of it. You can survive being politically friendless if you're delivering results that make you impossible to drop. Ocon, so far this year, hasn't been. And there's a pattern to his career that makes this moment feel heavier than a single bad season. Ocon has been the driver squeezed out before, pushed away from Alpine ahead of the end of a campaign, moved on despite a race win to his name. A driver who has repeatedly found that talent alone didn't guarantee him a comfortable chair. He's spent a career proving himself, at teams that eventually decided to look elsewhere. That history is why this particular squeeze lands the way it does. It isn't a new experience for him. It's a familiar one, and he knows better than anyone how quickly a seat can evaporate once the people above start looking past you. His public defiance, the shrug, the insistence that he doesn't care what's said, reads differently when you know how many times he's stood on this exact ledge before. That performance gap is what turns the political circling from a threat into a genuine opening, because it gives everyone a reason. When a driver is clearly outperforming the car, replacing him looks reckless. When he's being outdriven by a rookie, replacing him looks like good business. Ocon has, unintentionally, handed the people who want his seat the one thing they needed: a justification. There's a cruelty in the specific way this is unfolding too, because Ocon's problem isn't an abstract one. It's sitting on the other side of his own garage. In Formula One, the one measurement that strips away every excuse is your teammate. Same car, same tools, same engineers. Whatever's left in the gap between the two of you is simply the driver. And that comparison has not gone Ocon's way. Behrman, in only his second full season, has been the quicker of the two more often than not, out-qualifying the veteran and outscoring him by a margin that's impossible to spin. Every weekend the rookie beats him. Ocon isn't just losing a personal duel, he's quietly authoring the business case for his own replacement. Because if a first-year driver can extract more from that car than a decade-long veteran can, the obvious question in the boardroom becomes uncomfortable. What exactly is the veteran there for? That's the internal benchmark doing the damage, long before any external rival signs a thing. The threats circling from outside only matter because the comparison inside the team has already cracked the door open for them. So who's actually circling? This is where it stops being one threat and becomes three. The name generating the most heat is Yuki Tsunoda, and his story is the one that connects directly to Toyota. Tsunoda spent his entire career inside the Red Bull system, funded and shielded from the start by Honda. He climbed, eventually, to the senior Red Bull team, and there the story turned. Paired against Max Verstappen in a difficult car, he couldn't match the four-time champion, managing a fraction of Verstappen's points haul, and at the end of 2025, Red Bull dropped him from the race seat entirely, handing it to Isaac Hadjar. Not even a return to the junior team was offered. He landed in 2026 as Red Bull's reserve driver, a fast, proven Grand Prix racer suddenly on the outside of the grid looking in, and the door everyone assumed would save him had already shut. His backer Honda was leaving Red Bull to partner Aston Martin, but Aston's seats were filled, leaving Honda's own driver with nowhere obvious to follow. Tsunoda was stranded, elite, experienced, and unattached at the exact moment his career needed a lifeline. He's fast, deeply experienced, and, crucially, available. But the thing that makes him fascinating here is the irony buried in his backing. Tsunoda is Honda's man, and Haas is now Toyota's team. For Toyota to put Tsunoda in that seat would mean taking Honda's most prominent modern driver and rebranding him under the badge of Honda's oldest domestic rival, a marketing victory that would resonate in Japan far beyond the racetrack. That's why the link is real, and why it's more than just paddock noise. Beyond the marketing, there's a purely sporting logic to it too, which is what makes it dangerous rather than fanciful. A team going through a deep technical transition, new partner, new simulator, new manufacturing pipelines, a car pulled in several directions at once, needs a driver who can act as a stable reference point, someone experienced enough to tell the engineers precisely what the car is doing and why. Tsunoda, with 4 full seasons behind him, fits that brief exactly. He wouldn't arrive as a project to be developed, he'd arrive as a calibrating instrument, a known quantity to anchor the team while everything else around him changes. For a Toyota operation trying to learn Formula One quickly, that combination, Japanese, experienced, fast, and available, is close to ideal. It's not only a marketing move, it's a technically coherent one, and that's what should worry Ocon most. But, and this is the part the simple version misses, Tsunoda isn't the only one being lined up. Ferrari, remember, has its own agenda and its own academy, and it's reportedly pushing hard for its highly rated junior, Rafael Camara, to land that same seat. And from a third direction entirely, one of the names most frequently cited as the actual frontrunner isn't backed by either manufacturer at the team. It's Leonardo Fornaroli, the reigning Formula 2 champion, who happens to be a McLaren reserve. 3 credible candidates, pulled from 3 different power bases, all looking at one cockpit. Ocon isn't fighting off a single rival. He's standing in the middle of a 3-way scramble, and every one of the 3 has more momentum than a veteran on a expiring deal usually likes to see. Toyota's arrival sharpened all of this for a specific reason, one that goes back to something its leadership has never hidden. Toyota's motorsport philosophy has always centered on developing its own people and, where it can, putting Japanese talent on the world stage. Its return to Formula One through Haas came bundled with a development program, embedded engineers, and a clear long-term interest in shaping the team around its own priorities. None of that requires a secret ultimatum to explain why a Toyota-aligned driver in that seat would suit Toyota. It simply follows from what the company has said it wants for years. The partnership gave Toyota influence at Haas, and influence, over time, tends to point toward your own. Here's the honest counterweight, though, and it matters. Ocon is not gone. His seat is under pressure, not lost, and he himself has been publicly dismissive of the whole storm. Asked about the speculation, he essentially waved it away. The team trusts him, the principal trusts him, and, in his own blunt words, people can say what they like, but he doesn't much care. Komatsu, for his part, has firmly denied the more aggressive reports of a mid-season sacking, calling the idea of an imminent exit baseless. And there's a straightforward escape route still open to Ocon, the same one that's always been open to a driver under pressure. Perform. String together the weekends where he beats his teammate, drags the car into places it has no right to be, and the political calculus flips. A veteran delivering results is suddenly very hard to drop, no matter whose junior is waiting. The door hasn't closed. It's just being leaned on, hard, from three directions at once. But that's exactly what makes his position so precarious, and so revealing about where the sport is heading. Because Ocon's fate may not rest on whether he's good enough. It may rest on whether being good enough is even the deciding factor anymore. He's a Grand Prix winner in a seat that two manufacturers want for their own, on a contract that expires at the worst possible moment, with a rookie teammate quietly making the case against him every Sunday. He can control his laps. He can't control the boardrooms. So here's the question worth sitting with. In a Formula One, increasingly run by manufacturers promoting their own, what actually happens to the talented driver who belongs to no one? Tell me where you land in the comments. Does Ocon drive his way out of this and force them to keep him? Or has the seat already been promised to someone whose real advantage was never lap time at all?